Hello and hi, welcome back to Nobody Asked Though, where we are currently working our way through Nicole Kessinger's first interview using statement analysis and deception detection to extract more information than she perhaps wanted to give us. Okay, so if you're interested in statement analysis, deception detection, forensic linguistics, that sort of thing, or if you're just interested in the Chris Watts case, you have an opinion about Nicole Kessinger, and you maybe think that there's more to her story than what she is telling everybody, then this is definitely the place for you. So we're going to pick up where we left off in the last video, where she is in another block of nonsense, which is her favorite place. She lives there. She lives in blocks of nonsense. So I'm just going to read through the block, okay? Because in statement analysis, context is very important. If you've watched my videos before, then you've heard me say that a million times. But repetition is also very important in statement analysis. So sometimes we need to zoom out to get the full picture again, make sure we understand the context, the full context, the greater context, and then zoom back in so we can break down her language sentence by sentence, word by word, but we don't lose sight of the greater context, okay? I'll go through the greater context and then the sort of subcontexts as we go through. Just quickly, if this is your first time with us, the greater context is what's happened and where she is, like the situation, the context of why she's actually here having this interview right now, which is obviously what happened to Shanann and the girls and baby Nico, and the fact that she was having an affair with the person who's ultimately confessed to the crime, okay? Now, the subcontext, or as we zoom in closer and closer, the contexts, there's still the greater context which we need to take into account in every single detail of the analysis, in every single part of the language, but also the context of, you know, the guilt that she might be feeling and the situation that she's in and what's about to happen and her reputation, and does she actually feel bad about what's happened, and all of these other things we have to take into account. So she's talking to Kevin and he asks what Chris is like. So she's giving a whole lot of nothing, right? So she's saying a lot of words to come across like she's giving details, but actually she's not giving any details. She's not even really giving information at all, let alone details. So it comes through what he's like. He's an introvert, blah, blah, blah. Did you ever have arguments? Did he ever lose his temper, etc.? I think Kevin's trying to establish whether or not this was what happened when Chris did what he did, what he's confessed to. Is it something that he used to do often, losing his temper, that sort of thing? Maybe that has something to do with why what happened. I think that's what Kevin is trying to gain from this. It's very interesting the way Nicole answers those questions, because I do believe they're truthful answers. But there is deception in there. She is hiding information. She is tricking us with her words, with her language. Okay, so if you're interested in that, then go back and watch the previous video. So Kevin says, so you never saw him upset or mad. Now this is where her language changes. She was able to answer the other questions truthfully, saying no. But this answer, she can't just say no and leave it. She has to keep going. So there's obviously more to this. This is sensitive to her, right? It's not a no, okay? And what she says is no. I realize I just said she didn't say that, but she doesn't leave it at that. She can't leave it at that, right? And there was a couple times we had some disagreements on things that as we further progress into this story, you know, but it was never like, I'm very calm when I talk to people. It's extremely rational when I handle situations that there's a disagreement in. And he always was the exact same way, always. I never stressed anything. I think one thing that actually kind of drew me to him was the fact that he was very open with communicating with me if there were any differences on how we saw things, or just open-minded about things. It was actually, I personally thought it was kind of unique, because usually most of the men that I've ever met are typically very closed off, and I didn't get that from him. She starts to vocal fry really bad here. And I really want to do it and mimic it, but I know how irritating that's going to be for everyone listening. So she starts vocal fry, and then it goes super fry here, like super fry, okay? And I didn't get that from him at all, is where it's super fry. But it was like, but it was always like kind, very kind. Okay, we got a couple sentences in, right? In the last video, just find where I am in my notes here, because I've done my written analysis. Okay, so we got up to, but it was never like, I'm very calm when I talk to people. So we covered that in the last episode. There was a lot there, okay? There was a lot there, because we've established that she's not calm when she's disagreeing with Chris. Okay, that's what she's saying there. Right. We could probably get more out of that, but I think we've got the gist, the most important message from there. So we can always come back to it if you wanna comment in the comments, opinions, thoughts that you have, anything that you want to cover again, any questions. If you have questions, you can put them in the comments. I'm quite happy to answer. Obviously, I'm not getting that many views at the moment. The channel's not that big, so I'm not getting that many comments that I can't interact with people and, you know, converse and answer questions. If you have a question, I'm happy to do that. No problemo. So it's like extremely rational when I handle situations that there's a disagreement in. So it's, right, not she's. And that brings us back to the last sentence she said, where she says, but it was never like, I'm very calm when I talk to people. She can't say she was like, they together were never aggressive or escalated or whatever she was going to say, right? Because she's saying how he never lost his temper. They never argued. They never yelled at each other. And then she says, you know, we had disagreements, but it was never, whatever she was going to say, she couldn't say we. She couldn't include herself in that. It became it. It was never. And she still couldn't even finish that. It becomes talking about herself and defending herself against the thought that she had, which was that I actually did lose it. I can't actually say we never lost it because I did lose it. And then she goes into defensive mode because the brain knows what it knows. She knows the thought she was thinking at that moment. That's where the like is. The like is stall and then repair or recover, okay, like recovery. I'm very calm when I talk to people. So why did you need to tell us that just then? Is it because you were thinking about how you're not calm when you're disagreeing with Chris, how you lost your temper with him, how you yelled and screamed and you escalated and you were aggressive, or whatever you were about to say, that it was never? So now we're seeing it again. So it's like extremely rational when I handle situations. So she's not here in the language in the extremely rational. She's not extremely rational, it is. But when I handle situations, so she's handling the situations, but she's not rational. Does that make sense? I think I did go over that in the end of the last video, but we haven't gone through the analysis yet. When I handle situations that there's a disagreement in, so there's a lot of distancing there as well, because it's like extremely rational when I handle disagreements. She can't say that. Why can't she say that? Because that's not true. If the subject can't say something for themselves, we cannot say it for them. And she cannot say here that she is extremely rational when she handles conflict or disagreements. She can't say that, right? She can't say it. She says it's like extreme, like it's like, so it's stalling, it's qualifying, and it's sort of distancing as well. So it's like, it lacks confidence and it lacks commitment and conviction to what she's about to say. The like reduces commitment, it reduces conviction, confidence in what she's saying, okay? Because she's got to stop there and insert a word. She can't say it's extremely rational when I handle disagreements. But she can't say I'm extremely rational when I handle disagreements. It's like extremely rational. Extremely is persuasion as well. It's the need to persuade. Why? Because the truth doesn't need help. The truth can stand on its own 2 feet, but fabrication and lies, they need persuasion, they need help, okay? So she's not rational when she... And why would you even need to say you're rational when you handle disagreements? Why would you even need to say, I'm rational when I handle conflict? Okay. Are you sure about that? Does it depend who I ask? Because that's an odd thing for you to need to tell me, right? If you're rational when you handle conflict, you shouldn't need to say it because it's normal for you, and you don't think to say it because you don't need to explain it. You don't need to persuade anybody. So it's very odd that she needs to tell us this in the first place. But let's look at the previous line again. But it was never like, I am very calm when I talk to people. It's like extremely rational when I handle situations that there's disagreement in. So she doesn't just tell us she's very calm when she talks to people, which of course you are, because normal human beings are calm when they talk to people. She doesn't say, I'm calm when I am in conflict or I have disagreements. She says she's calm when she talks to people. I would hope so, right? Then she goes on, and it still needs help. It still needs more. It needs more help, right? It's like extremely rational when I handle situations that there's a disagreement in. There's so much distancing, but it's so convincing. It's so convincing, like you're trying so hard. You covered it when I'm very calm when I talk to people, sort of. You didn't mention disagreements. Maybe she's caught that because she struggled to get it out. She said talk to people. She's realized she didn't mention the disagreements, okay? So maybe now she's like, oh, I didn't say, well, of course I'm calm when I talk to people. That sounds weird. I'd better recover from that. I'd better save it. It's like extremely rational when I handle situations that there's a disagreement in. That is always distancing, right? When I handle disagreements, no, that's not what she said. She can't put, it's extremely rational when I handle disagreements. She can't put that together, okay? She needs to distance the handling rationally of the disagreements. She needs to separate it. She needs to put distance there because she's not comfortable saying that just because it's not true, okay? Lying causes stress. The brain doesn't like to lie. So that's why people come up with ways to get around outright, blatantly lying, okay? Outright, blatantly lying is the least common form of deception, the least common form of lying. Most people will lie by omission and things like that. That's why when you're in court and you put your hand on the Bible and you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So it covers those forms of lying. So you're going to tell the truth. You're not going to blatantly lie. You're going to tell the whole truth. You're not going to leave things out, right? Lie by omission, and nothing but the truth. So you're not going to filibuster and add things in to trick people. Like when she says, I'm very calm when I talk to people. She's not saying she never lost her temper there, right? So that's why I actually never understood why people said that in court, why that was how you swore to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Because I thought, well, why can't you just swear to tell the truth? Because even all of these years, all throughout history, it's recognized the way people lie, and swearing yourself on the Bible covers the different forms of lying. And I didn't know that until I did Peter's course. So that's very interesting. There you go. So that's how people generally lie. Now, Nicole does like to lie by, I think the most common way she's lied so far, I think, is by tricking, by using extra information. So the nothing but the truth part, right? She gives extra stuff to confuse and trick you into thinking that she's telling you something, but she's not actually saying that, right? So, all right, let's read through the analysis that I have. Oh, I don't have much here. Oh, I don't have much here at all. Okay, that might be because it's so straightforward. It might be because it might be because I come back to it and refer back to it in the following lines. I'm not sure. Let's find out together, because I can't remember. This was so long ago that I wrote all this. Okay. It's like, so what's it? Again with the it. It's from the previous line. So she's done it. She's repeated it. Now, repetition is important. So she's repeated it, which means she's really struggling to put herself into this language, to be present in this language. She can't take ownership. She can't take possession or be, she can't put herself in what she's saying. She can't even be there. So she's distanced herself by removing the I pronoun and replacing it with it. I think we might have missed a lot of pronoun work in this analysis because there's so much garbage. And sometimes pronouns, that when you're going through stuff like this, because they're so simple, right, and they're so obvious, and we use them all the time, they're so instinctive that sometimes you don't notice when they're switched or when they're missing. So if you've noticed where we haven't noted or flagged a missing or a wrong pronoun, please put it in the comments. So she's replaced I with it, okay? So she's not confident in this. She doesn't want to be present in the language. She can't be present in the language. When she's referring to handling situations where there's a disagreement, being irrational, when handling situations rationally, where there's a disagreement, my goodness, she can't be present there, okay? Distancing language again between her pronoun and the disagreement. When I handle disagreements, note, when I handle situations that there's a disagreement in, right? So let's look at this. I am very calm when I talk to people. It's like extremely rational when I handle situations that there's a disagreement in. When I handle disagreements, note, when I handle situations that there's a disagreement in. 5 words separating them instead of 1. Whatever, I don't know, I'm not going to recount that. And they aren't disagreements. They are situations that there's a disagreement in. So she's minimizing them as well and reducing them. So they're not disagreements, okay? They're situations that there's a disagreement in. Okay, so she's distancing even further from the disagreements and she's minimizing them, okay? Because she probably can be rational in situations, but in disagreements, she can't. So by framing it in as situations, she's easier for her to say it, and then she can say that there's a disagreement in, distancing, minimizing, and it's easier for her to say it. So what is she not saying here? All right, because we believe what people tell us, okay? In statement analysis, we always start with a presumption of truthfulness, right? Just like a presumption of innocence, there's a presumption of truthfulness. We always start believing that everything that the subject is going to tell us, every word that they say is going to be true, okay? We let the language guide us to whether we carry on, it supports that. We carry on believing that because the language supports it. or the language doesn't support it, and we have to change our mind, and it indicates deception. Okay. So what if we agree, if we always believe everything that the subject tells us, okay, what is she telling us here? Okay, not what words is she saying, right? What is she telling us? Because let's look at the words she's saying, and that is not the same as what she's telling us. I hope that you understand that. If you're watching these videos, you do, because if you don't understand that, you would not be interested in this at all. So what she's saying, the words she's using, the words she's saying, right? I'm very calm when I talk to people. It's like extremely rational when I handle situations that there's a disagreement in. That's the words she's saying. What is she telling us? Okay, because of the sensitivity indicators that we know about, we understand, and we recognize, okay, what she's telling us here is she's not calm at all, because there's a very calm, right? She's not calm at all when she's disagreeing with Chris, okay? And she is not rational when handling disagreements. That's what she's telling us here, okay? So what she's telling us and the words she's saying can sound very different. And that's how language analysis works. And that's why it works so well, because when a person is trying to put something across, they're saying the words, they're choosing words that they think will trick you into hearing what they want you to hear. But that's not what they're telling you, okay? All right, let's continue. So, oh, we're over here. We're on this page. We're nearly finished. All right, so they aren't disagreements, all right? And note also that they aren't arguments, right? They're just disagreements. So this is her language, because Kevin used the word arguments, okay? No, you can't have that because that's got coffee in it. And you can't have coffee. I put cream in my coffee and Harry can smell the cream and he wants it, but he's not allowed because he's a little kitty. All right. They aren't disagreements. Yeah, so they aren't disagreements. They're situations. But note that they're still not arguments. And arguments is the word, hello Gus. Argument is the word that Kevin used. So he's introduced language, he's given her language, and she's decided, she's chosen not to use the language he's given her. She's decided to change the language and use something else. That's important, all right? Because generally when someone's handed, this is why we don't introduce language, okay? Because when someone's given language, they can then take that and run with it, and it's not their words, it's your words, right? But she hasn't even done that here, which shows that she's so uncomfortable using the word argument. Might be harder for her to, I'm not sure if I mentioned this in the last video, I think it's harder for her to lie about being calm in an argument. I think it's harder for her to use words that trick us, to say she's calm in or rational in disagreements, because when it's arguments, she can't lie about that. It's too hard because it's too untrue. It's too blatantly a lie. Okay, so she's minimized the language, she's reduced an argument to a disagreement, and that enables her to then be more comfortable albeit with all of the distancing and the switching of the pronouns and not being present in the language and all of these things that she needs to do to help her to lie, okay, to assist her, because she doesn't want to just blatantly lie. So then she's able to more cleverly deny it. But with the word argument, it might have been too hard, too stressful for her to cleverly deny it and trick us, right? So that is important, okay, that she's changed the language there, and then she's carried on using that language as well. That there's a disagreement in. So there's situations that there's a disagreement in, okay? Distancing, again, reducing. Because who isn't extremely rational in situations? Right? I have a situation right now. My situation is that I'm sitting in front of some lights and I'm doing a video. I think I'm being extremely rational. I'm extremely rational in situations. Sorry, it's extremely rational in situations, okay? Sorry, when I handle situations. So I'm handling this situation right now extremely rationally, okay? I'm staying calm, I'm keeping my composure, and I'm handling it rationally. So she's sorry, backwards, very calm, and it increases in the desperation, the persuasion as well. It increases in the persuasion as she goes along. It was like the incidents, what was it, the disagreements they had. There was a couple of times. So they're 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it gets more as she goes along in the sentence. It increases in frequency by the end of the sentence, right? She does the same thing here. She's very calm when she talks to people, right? And extremely rational when she handles situations, okay? So I would like to know of anybody that isn't very calm when they talk to people in general and extremely rational when they handle situations, okay? That there's a disagreement in. It could literally be like when you're cooking Christmas lunch or something and then you say, should I put egg wash on the potatoes, the roast potatoes? And then someone says, no, I never put egg wash on the roast potatoes. I use butter. And then someone else says, no, I never use butter. I use milk. That's a disagreement, okay? So handle that rationally if you can, right? So she's still trying to say they didn't have arguments, okay, because she's repeating disagreements, and then actually become situations too. So she's reducing the arguments even more now to situations that there's a disagreement in. So they're not even disagreements, okay. I don't know if I don't know if I should explain further how that's more minimizing. So she's turned an argument into a disagreement, right? Which is minimized, it's lessening it. But then instead of it being a disagreement, so if you have a disagreement with someone, the disagreement is sort of the whole thing. It's the entirety of the thing you're talking about, okay? But what she's done is she's made a situation this entirety. And then there's a disagreement in there, inside of it. So the disagreement isn't the whole thing anymore. It's a fraction or a part of the thing, right? So that's how she's reduced it again. So she's still trying to say they didn't have arguments. She never saw him mad or upset, but she can't say it. She can't say she never saw him mad or upset. She was able to say they didn't have arguments. She was able to say they never had a yelling match. She was able to say that by answering no to the questions. She was able to say she never saw him lose his temper, but she was not able to say that she never saw him mad or upset. And from the language that we've just examined or analyzed, I would allow for the possibility that he got mad or upset with her. She made him mad or upset. Okay? And he always was so I don't know if there's anything else we need to cover in that. Extremely, like I've put in here, I haven't got it in the written analysis. So anything else that jumps out to us that's not in the written analysis, like is like in confidence, it's sort of stalling before extremely rational. So obviously that's persuasive, and it's desperate. It's desperation, right? Because extremely is like extreme, right? It's excessive as a description, okay? She says very calm. She could have said like, I'm very rational, you know, extremely rational. So there's rational, and then there's to the extreme. She's extremely rational. It's too much. It's unnecessary, and it's too much. It's pushing too hard. And this again, oh my neck. This again is supporting this constant theme or pattern or narrative that we're seeing throughout this language, throughout her interview, and it continues, and it gets much worse, okay? Of her, you know, being good and kind and helpful and decent and respectful and, you know, rational and calm. All of these things that are pushing her narrative of what she's like, right? And why is she pushing a narrative of what she's like? Let's have a look at the context again. Let's zoom out. I'm going to have to leave a note because I'm going to get lost in the forest of tangents again. Why is she good? Why is she good? Why is the narrative, her narrative, that she's good and kind and all of these things, right? Decent, calm, all of these things. The greater context. Why is she here? What's happened? Shanann, the girls, Nico, baby Nico. That's what's happened, right? Chris has confessed. She was his girlfriend. She's the mistress of a man that's confessed to these crimes. That's why she's here. She's being interviewed, not interrogated. That's very important in the context of things, okay? She's not a suspect at this point, right? That's the greater context. That's why she's here, okay? Now what's the sort of, let's zone in a little bit. She's in an interview room being interviewed by officers, by authority, by police or agents, or I'm not sure if they're FBI or they're just police, detectives, because she's the mistress, right? But she's not a suspect at this point, right? They're interviewing her to get information about how and why this could have happened, and how and why Chris has done this, because she's his mistress. So aside from his wife and possibly family or close friends, she's probably the closest person to him at this point in time, leading up to and right before he's done what he's done. So her insight and her perception, I guess, of him and what he was like at that time and around that time and leading up to that time could be helpful to them in figuring out why and how this happened, I suppose. That's why she's there, okay? So, if that's why she's there, why is her narrative convincing us that she's good and she's kind and she wouldn't have had anything to do with this, when she's actually not being accused of having anything to do with this? Why does she need to convince everyone that she isn't the kind of person that would do something like this, and that she didn't know about this, and all of this narrative that she's pushing, right? Why? Why is the question we ask in statement analysis. Why are they telling us this? Why is this important to them? Why is this sensitive, right? Why is she pushing a narrative about herself and how good and decent and calm and rational and kind and respectful she is and helpful, when they're asking her about Chris? Is it because she's not those things and she maybe did have something to do with it or know about it, so she needs to desperately convince us that she didn't and doesn't and isn't? That's why context is important, right? So we have to keep taking that into account when we're looking at these things, okay? I feel like I'm channeling Fraggle Rock today. If you know what I mean, right? And also, do you like my earrings? And these, in case you're wondering, are Wuthering Heights. The original Emily Bronte book, not the monstrosity that they've just made in a film adaptation, which I've not seen and I refuse. Just quietly. Okay, so is there anything else there? When I handle situations, she hasn't said when I'm extremely rational. She hasn't said I'm at all, okay, but she hasn't said she's extremely rational in situations or where there's a disagreement, that there's a disagreement in. It's not even where there's a disagreement, it's that there's a disagreement in. There's so much distancing, it's insane. But when I handle situations, okay, do you know what? This has just come to me just now. This is more of her controlling language leaking out. This is more of her controlling language leaking out. We saw some before when she said made something. I can't remember what it was. With me, it made him feel. Now, she didn't say I made him feel, right? It made him feel. I think subconsciously, oh, goodness me. Okay. Don't get lost. Don't get lost. Make sure you find your way back. I think subconsciously, she knows that she was the driving force in this, allegedly, in my opinion. Anyone who is not judicially guilty is judicially innocent, and everything I say in my videos is purely opinion and not fact, and it is just my opinion and alleged, okay? She knows in her mind that she was the leader. She was in control in this relationship, okay? She made the decisions. She pushed it. She made, everything was up to her. She was in control, all right, of the relationship, of what happened, of everything, okay? Allegedly, in my opinion, for instance, hypothetically, okay? With me, it made him feel, not I made him feel, because made is a very forceful, controlling word. So I made him. She wasn't able to say, subconsciously, she wasn't able to say, I made him. Okay? Because that is perhaps too close to the danger zone. To say, I made him anything, to say I made him do anything or feel or do or say or whatever. To say, I made him is language she wants to steer clear of. Because of the narrative I just said, she needs to convince us that she's nice and kind and didn't know and didn't help and didn't have anything to do with it, right? She's a good person. Made him, I made him is too close to the danger zone of language there. She can't say that. It's too difficult. It's too dangerous. It's too scary and stressful to say those words together in that, like phrase it like that. Say those words together. I made him. That's massive, okay? Because here it is again. When I handle situations, she's not extremely rational in situations where there's a disagreement. She's not in situations. She handles situations. When I handle situations, and she's present in the language there. She handles situations. Now, why could she put herself in the language here and be present with the I pronoun here and not there? Because that was, I made him. I made Chris. And this is when I handle situations, not when I handle Chris. Okay. Situations as well, instead of disagreements. When I handle situations, she handles situations. Okay. She handles situations. She decides the decisions. She handles the situations. She chooses the choices. She controls things. Does that make sense? Because that's what she's saying. It made him, because she said with me, but then she didn't say I made him. With me, it made him. She can't say I made him, right? But here, I handle situations. I handle stuff. I control stuff. I'm in charge, right? There's more of this. She's a controlling person, okay? And this is that leaking out in the language. And that didn't come out in the written analysis. And I didn't notice that until right now, because as you know, if you've watched my videos, sometimes I get stuck on things that bother me and I cannot move on. So just reading over that again, when I say sometimes we could probably get more out of this, that's what I mean. So if you look at it and you read it over and over again and you go word by word and then you go, oh, okay, here's another thing. Here's more. Here's something else. So I'm glad that we didn't move on straight away from that. I think also she's extremely irrational. I think she's extremely irrational. I think that's coming out in this language here because she's used the word extremely, which is her own language, to convince us about how rational she is. So I think she's extremely irrational, right? When there's disagreements. Okay. And I think disagreements being sort of arguments, I think she's extremely irrational in arguments when it's sort of a little more at a higher level of escalation than a disagreement. But I think in arguments, she's extremely irrational and not calm. And she gets her way. She is in charge. She decides. She is in control. Okay. And if she doesn't get her way, I think then you will have a problem and you might see an escalation. Okay. So I think we can move on from there now. There's nothing else that's real I'm hung up on. If you think that there's something in there that you've noticed that I haven't mentioned, please put it in the comments because I really didn't have that much written for that. Like I said, it could be because it's so obvious, straightforward. But then when you look a bit closer, there is more. Oh, my arm. I actually can barely straighten my arm today. I've got the nerve pain is just, nobody cares. Why am I whinging? Let's just get on with the analysis, shall we? And he always was the exact same way, like always. So remember, they're asking her about Chris here. Okay, what was Chris like? He was an introvert. Did he ever lose his temper? Did you ever have a yelling match? You never saw him mad or upset. All of a sudden, she's telling us how calm and rational she is, right? When they're asking about Chris. Now, oh, that's right. I was supposed to be talking about, and he always was the exact same way, like always. Like, I'm totally talking about him right now. I'm not talking about myself. I'm explaining what he's like by telling you what I'm like, and he was the exact same way. Sorry. That's so funny, isn't it? Isn't that funny? I'll tell you what he's like by telling you what I'm like, okay? Because he's the same as me. you know what? She's growing on me. It might have something to do with not listening to her interview again, and the vocal fry, and her voice. Her voice just makes me want to poke my own eyes out. Well, that doesn't stop me from hearing her, so that would, but it makes me want to do that, and then it'd be worse, because then I'd still be able to hear her. But she makes me irrational and want to just do irrational things like that. No, it's awful. So, but as we go through, it's making me laugh. And I have I've already uploaded it. I haven't made it public yet. I haven't published it, but I've uploaded a couple of videos already, so I'm trying to get ahead this week. Because I had such a ridiculous last 2 weeks where I couldn't record, and I didn't have equipment, and then my internet dropped out, and then I fell and was a cripple and couldn't get out of bed for 2 days. So all of this stuff happened like the last 2 weeks. It's been it was a struggle to just get my videos out, and I didn't even get them out on time, and I missed one. So this week I'm trying to get, at least a video or two ahead. Anyway, where was I? Don't know. All right, let's carry on. And he always was the exact same way, like always, right? So let's pretend that I've been telling you about him the whole time by describing myself. So and is additional, it's cumulative, it continues, right? It carries on. It adds. So, and he was always the exact same way, like always. So what was he like? The exact same way. So what was he exactly like, right? Shall we? Calm when he talks to people, very calm when he talks to people, and extremely rational when he handles situations there's a disagreement in. That's the word she said. That's what she's saying, he was the exact same way. We know that's not what she was actually telling us, right? But now she's trying to tell us he was the exact same way. So I believe he was those things, even though when she was saying those words, she was telling us she wasn't like that. Okay? Stay with me. When she was telling us this about herself, she was actually telling us she's not like that. But when she says he always was the exact same way, I believe her. I believe he was. Why do I believe he was? Because she says, and he, so he's present in the language. There's no but as well. It doesn't refute anything. It adds to it. And he always was is past tense, right? He always was, and always fits there. It might be a little bit persuasive, right? But it fits there. Always was. It just means the entire time that the time frame she's talking about, always and never are the same, right? But always is in the positive or the affirmative, and never is in the negative, right? He always was the exact same way, like always. Now she's repeated always, and I think I don't think that's because it's deceptive. I think that's because it's persuasive and she's desperate. What she's actually saying here, right? Okay, stay with me. So she's repeated always, okay? Now, when someone repeats language, it's important, okay? It's sensitive. I think the reason it's sensitive is not because he wasn't always like that, calm and rational. I think he was always calm and rational, right? I do. And she tells us he was always, okay? The exact same way. The exact same way. She is using him and the way he actually was to liken herself to that. So I know, stay with me. Even though she's talking about herself, and then likens him to her, right? She's not like that. But then she tricks us with her language, right? And tries to convince us she is like that. But then she tells us he is actually like that, right? And he is actually like that. the exact same way as her. So she is exactly like him. Does that make sense? Like always. And the always, and then the repeated always, is to convince us, the listener, and Kevin, that she is like him, not that he is like her. Does that make sense? Does that just blow your mind or what? How cool is statement analysis? I'm nerding out on this one. This is amazing. I love this language. It's getting really interesting now. It's getting really good. So I believe that he was always like that, right? Because she's able to tell us. And he, not but, and he, present in the language, always, the entire time she's talking about, always, consistently, was, past tense, it happened, the exact same way. The exact same way. Like always. So, he was exactly like what she was saying, but she's not like she was saying. Okay? But she was exactly like him. And he was like that. Does that make sense? Yes. I love that bit. That's one of my favorite bits. That was really good. And you know why I'm so happy with that? I'm so excited about that because so much of that actually just came out in real time. Right? Especially the controlling language. That wasn't in my original analysis. The controlling language. And he always was the exact same way. Like always. Now there's distancing there. But not with him. Not in the language with him. Not in that he was. The exact same way. Yeah, so she's trying to convince us that she's like him. Not that he's like her. He was like that, okay? But, what was the question? Did you ever see him mad or upset? Now, she has, right? So he always was the exact same way. Calm when he talks to people. Rational when handling situations there's a disagreement in. She's not said that he was calm in disagreements or arguments. She's not said he was rational in disagreements or arguments, right? I believe he was, but she hasn't said that. And I think that is because the question was, did you ever see him mad or upset? And she did make him mad or upset. I think it was at her. She was the reason. And that's why it's sensitive. Okay? And she hasn't said he was never mad or upset. She's not said that. Okay? But she said he was always very calm and he was rational. And I believe that. You can be mad and upset and also at the same time be calm and rational whilst being mad and or upset. You can be calm and rational and upset and or mad at the same time. You can be. And I think Chris probably was. And I've said before, I think he was the kind of guy that just let stuff go, right? He went along with things. He didn't rock the boat. He just went along to get along. I think that's what he did. I think that's what he did with his mum. I think that's what he did with Shanann. And I think that's what he did with Nikki. I think that's what he always did with especially women, probably men as well. I don't know. So yeah, I do believe that was correct. Right, so I only have a really small amount written here for this one as well. We are steaming through here this tonight. Oh, we've only gone through one. Oh, this is number 2. Okay, let's go. And he always. So this is unexpected phrasing. Yeah, it's in a different order, but I think the order is because of that she's using him to support her. She's using him to be like, he's like me, I'm like that, right? So I think that's why the wording is mixed up, and it's not how you would usually say it. He was always is more of the expected order of those words, right? He always was the exact same way. He was always the exact same way, right? Always comes first. And I think that is because she's trying to persuade, and always is more important to her, that we know always, he always was the exact same way, always. And that's because she wants us to think she always was like that, okay? Because always is the important part to her to get across, right? Because people as a species, right? Human beings as a species, we keep things close to us that we want close to us, and we push things away that we don't want close to us, okay? So we prioritize things in order of importance, and the things that are more important are closer to us, and the things that are less important are further away from us. So because she's put he always was instead of he was always is the important part to get across for her. I think that's why she's done that. So she's trying again, she's jumbled the words around to put he and always closer together. Yep, he and always were closer together. So he always was like that, okay? I think he always was like that, right? Except when she upset him. I think she did upset him. But even when he was upset, I think he was still calm and rational. And that's why there's so much emphasis on the he always was that like that. And I think he was. And that's why she wants us to liken him to her. She wants us to think she was like that, because he always was like that, okay? It gets warm in here. I turn the heater off, and then within 5 minutes, it's freezing. Unbelievable. I think I need some better curtains or something. And repeating always, as we've mentioned. So persuasive, convincing, it's desperate. She's desperate because she's repeated it, right? He always was the exact same way. Not the same way. Nope, the exact same way. Exactly the same way. The exact same way. So it's desperate. And it's desperate because it's her own desperation for us to believe that that's what she's like, okay? If you have a different opinion for this and why she's worded it like this, or what she's saying here in these last few sentences with the calm, rational, and always he was always the exact same way, please put it in the comments. I'd love to hear it, because I could be missing stuff here, because there's a lot in here, okay? So then again, like always, right? So she's convinced, like always. He was never upset or mad. He was always she never says that though. She never says he was never upset or mad. She actually doesn't say that. He was always very calm and extremely rational, okay? Yeah, and I believe that he was. She is too desperate for us to believe something reasonably unlikely. This is sensitive to her. She wants us to believe this. No, I can see why I said that the first time around. Because someone always being, like never being upset or mad is unreasonable, unlikely. But she actually didn't say he was never upset or mad. She said he was calm and rational always, right? And she didn't say he was calm when he was angry. And she didn't say he was extremely rational when he was angry, right? I think he was still, personally. I think he was. And she indicates in the language he always was like that. So always, even when he was angry. But she never says he wasn't upset or mad ever, okay? Because I think she did upset him and she did make him mad a couple of times. And this is sensitive to her. And she's too desperate, right? She's so desperate for us to believe it. Because she wants us to believe it of her. Think about how much she's spoken about herself, right? I'm very calm when I talk to people. It's like extremely rational when I handle situations that there's a disagreement in. And he always was the exact same way. Like the him part is so small and short that all of the emphasis is on I'm like this, I'm like this. And he was always exactly the same. So I think the desperation is for us to believe that that's what she was like, all right? Not that that's what he was like. That's where there is desperation coming through. There is persuasion and the need to persuade. And that's what I think it's about. Okay, guys, this is the third sentence. I feel like we're moving through this too fast. Am I missing something? Am I missing something? If I'm missing something, put it in the comments. I can't believe we're getting onto a third sentence in one video. This is this a preset? Have we not done this before? It's the first time. Like, I never stressed anything. Back to her again. Like, I never stressed anything. So we're back to her. We're back to her again. So none of this is about him. This is all about her, right? She wants us to think she's like this. Oh my gosh, there he is. I'll be right back. Okay. Like, I never stressed anything. So what? Aren't we talking about him? But she can't say he never stressed anything. So she says she didn't. Like also lacks confidence. Never anything persuasive. So we've got a never and we've got anything. He always was the exact same way. Calm and rational, right? Always. So even when he was mad and upset. Okay. Like, I never stressed anything. Talking about herself again. This is so odd, right? This is another one of those phrases that jumped out to me that was odd because it's not an expected phrasing. It's not how you would say this. Like, I never stressed about anything. Can you hear that? That's him eating. I hope you can't hear that because it's revolting. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I didn't mean it. Oh, sweetie. You eat however you want to. I'm sorry. I think he heard me. It's okay. Nobody minds. You're not bothering anyone. Like, I never stressed anything. And look, I believe her. And what I believe about this is I believe that she knew she had complete confidence that she could carry on however much she liked, and she could escalate and throw tantrums and be irrational and not be calm, right? Oh my gosh, just came in. No, you just came in, darling. Not yet. Yeah, not yet. Come and have some more dinner and you can go out after. It's too cold out there, sweetie. It's too cold out there, darling. Stay in here with us. He'll go and cry by the door again in a sec. Come on. He's getting old, this one. Poor little thing. So she had complete and utter confidence. She knew. You know how you just know some things? Like you know them. I'm trying to come up with an example of you know, something you might know. You know, when people go missing, right? And they say, this person would never, disappear and leave her children, right? And you just know, there's just no way. There's no way this person would ever disappear and abandon their children. There's things you just know, right? And I think she knew that no matter how she behaved, he would never lose his temper with her. He would never lose it at her. I think that's what she never stressed about. I never stressed anything. She never put a strain on them by behaving the way she did, because she knew that he would stay rational and calm. Oh, I'm gonna have to let him out. He wants to go out. I don't know why. And he always was the exact same way, like always. Like I never stressed anything. So it's sort of carrying on. I broke it up when I wrote it down, but you could probably put that in the same sentence. And he always was the exact same way, like always. Like I never stressed anything. Always and never the same. Complete, the entirety of the time frame she's talking about, right? I never stressed anything. Nothing. Not one thing. Not anything, right? There was no doubt in her mind that he wouldn't stay. There's no doubt in her mind that he would stay. There was no doubt in her mind that he would stay calm and rational. Always. Even when he was upset and mad at her. There was no doubt in her mind. That was a certainty for her, okay? He always was the exact same way, calm and rational, okay? Like I never stressed anything. So she always knew, she could count on the fact that he always was exactly the same. He always was like that. He was always calm and he was always rational. Even when he was mad and upset, she never had to be concerned with that. She never doubted it, okay? Which possibly allowed her the freedom to lose her shit. Knowing that he wouldn't do anything about it. Maybe. But that's what she's saying. He always was the exact same way. Like always. Like I never stressed anything. What would she need to stress? That he would lose it and get upset or mad? He would get upset or mad? That he would lose his temper? She never stressed anything. What would you need to stress about? What, that when you're being a complete psycho, that he might defend himself, or that you might cop it? You might get back a little bit of what you're giving? Maybe? I would never, ever condone violence, right? If a woman is going at a man, I think he has the right to defend himself from a woman, okay? Just because you're a woman doesn't give you a free pass to physically attack a man because you're angry or upset, okay? So maybe that's what she's talking about. She could lose it. She never had to worry about him retaliating or lashing out at her or, you know, getting fed up and doing something to her. Maybe in the past she has had that. Maybe in the past she's pushed men a little bit too far, and maybe she's not been with the you know, with the best, the most decent blokes, I'm Australian, sorry. And maybe in the past, someone has given her back a little bit of what she's given. Maybe, I don't know. But with him, she never stressed anything. She never worried about that. I also think that's more persuasion. I'm just going to let him out. It's freezing out there. I don't know why he wants to go out there, but he wanted to go out there. Okay. So I also think, like, I never stressed anything. I also think this is her. Now, how do I explain this? Like, I never stressed anything. I think this is also her leaking a little bit that she she wasn't like this, the way he was exactly. I think this is, again, her trying to convince us that she's talking about him. But she's actually talking about herself. That she did lose it. And she wasn't calm and she wasn't rational. But she's trying to convince us that he was there for she was. Because he was just like her. Like she was just like him. Like I never stressed anything. Because he was... This is bothering me now. I think I'm missing something here. Okay, we can come back to that. Because that's now bothering me. I think there's something there. Okay. I think one thing that actually kind of drew me to him was the fact that he was like very open with communicating with me. Okay. I think, so it lacks confidence. All right, I'm going to read through what I've written here. I don't actually have a lot for any of these, which is kind of good. Oh, I have got a lot for that one. Okay. I think, so not confident. So, but she thinks, she's here in the language. I think, but think is not certain, right? It's uncertain. So she's not so confident here. Needs a qualifier, right? One thing, so there's multiple things. More than one, but she can't say with confidence, even this is one of them. I don't believe this, what she's saying, okay? So we believe what people are telling us, but the words that she's saying here is not going to be what she's telling us, and I'm not convinced already. I think one thing that actually kinda drew me to him, there's too much qualifying, it lacks confidence, it's not committed, it's not she can't say it with conviction. Actually always compares something. So actually can't exist without another thought, and usually the other thing is the truth, right? So one thing that actually kind of drew me to him, this didn't draw her to him. And what she's saying doesn't make sense. What actually kind of drew me to him, right? Drew me to him was like the fact that he was like very open with communicating with me. When you first meet someone, you're not like open with communicating. So that's not what drew her to him. That's fabrication. And there's more persuasion as well, because she's trying to convince us that he she's trying to convince us here of the last few lines again. She's reiterating and convincing and going on still about how he didn't lose his temper and how he didn't yell and argue. He was rational and calm. There's a need to persuade here. Okay, let's keep reading, because this is now bothering me. There's something more here. There's something more here, and I can't put my finger on it right now, because this is very strange. Before was obvious. Before made sense, right? She's trying to convince us what she's like, okay, by him being like that. But now she's talking more about what he was like. Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. If you have any ideas before I've read it, before I've gone through it, pop them in the comments. Just see if you get it right. See if we see the same things come out, all right? Because this is bothering me. And maybe you're picking up on something that I haven't picked up on yet. I haven't seen it yet. Okay. So it needs a qualifier of I think. So I think one thing. So there's multiple things. There's more than one thing. But she can't say... yeah, because I don't think this is the thing, right? So one thing, because there's other things. The other things are probably the true things. And this thing isn't really a true thing, okay? That drew her to him or whatever. I don't think this is accurate. I don't believe her. That's what I've got written here. I don't believe her. I don't believe this is one thing that drew her to him, right? Okay, so good. I'm picking up on the same thing as I did the first time. This is continuing to convince and attempt to persuade. Yep. But of what? Right? Of what? Okay. So actually can't exist without another thought. Usually the other thought is the truth. So actually drew her to him. I don't believe her. Also, kinda is another qualifier. So that actually kinda. That isn't so distancing here. Because you could reword it. So for that to be distancing, right, it has to work without it in the sentence, right, for it to be distancing, because that is always distancing, right? So it is distancing here, because in the way that you have to word it to include that in the sentence is different to the way that you would have to word it to remove that from the sentence. But it still works without it, but you have to move the words around. But when you move the words around, they get closer together, okay? So for instance, and there might be more than one way to word it without that being included. So let me read it here. I think one thing that actually kind of drew me to him, right? We'll finish it there. So to remove that from the sentence, you would just use the word what. What kind of drew me, or what actually kind of drew me to him. So one thing that actually kind of drew me to him is more distancing, because it's removing from the thing that it was, right? So one thing that actually drew me to him was the fact that he was open with me. If you remove that, we'll leave actually and kinda in there. What actually kind of drew me to him, so you're removing extra words and so it's getting closer. So what actually kind of drew me to him was the fact. So what was the fact? the what here was the fact that he was very open. Whereas with that included, stay with me, with that included, one thing that actually drew me to him was the thing, right? Was he was open with me. So instead of him being open with me being what drew me to him being open with me is one thing that drew me to him. So it separates it. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. But also, if you just want to think of it in terms of literal word distance and literal number of words, more words is more distance. So what actually kind of drew me to him is one, right? One word. I think one thing that, as opposed to 5, actually drew me to him. So what, to remove that, you would use what actually drew me to him was, that's one word, but to include that is 5 words. Okay, so it's distancing. If that helps you to understand how that is distancing always, right? Because when there's a that in the sentence, it might occur that there's no other way to say it, maybe at some point, but I don't know that I've ever come across a sentence that I couldn't rearrange or switch out words to remove that. And so it's distancing. So, because when I say if you have to if you remove it and the sentence still works on its own, sometimes all you have to do is just remove the word that, and the sentence still works on its own. Like one that we've covered previously, you could just remove the word that, and the sentence still worked exactly how it was. It still worked, and it was a full and complete sentence just by removing that. So that was distancing because it was unnecessary to be there. It still worked without it. In this one, you can't just remove the word that and it still works, right? But if you switch out the words, you can word it without it, and it's a shorter sentence. So that is still distancing, all right? I hope that makes sense. So where were we? Continuing to attempt to persuade, right? But why? Why? What is she now trying to convince? What is she now telling us? Okay, because it's not what she's saying, the words she's saying. What is she now telling us, right? Because why is always the important question to ask in statement analysis. So why is she saying this? What's she trying to convince us of here? Okay. So actually drew her to him. I don't believe her. Also, kinda is another qualifier. That actually kinda drew her to him. This is not confident or certain. I think actually kinda. This is a setup to another persuasive or convincing point. So was the fact that. So the fact that. So she's dropped in the fact. So it's a fact, right? It's undisputed. It's I don't know the word I'm trying to think of, and I won't make you stare at me while I try and think of it. Here's another fact, right? She's telling us it's a fact, so we can't not believe her because she's telling us it's a fact. Facts are undisputed. Another point, why didn't she mention any of these things that drew her to him earlier when she was asked to describe him? That's a very good point. Past me. Why didn't she mention any of these things that drew her to him? Because this is one thing, right? So there must be more. And when she was asked what he was like, she didn't say he was, Well, she said he was more outgoing with her. I don't know if I've said this in the video or if I was just thinking it. I think I mentioned it in a video. Because I do watch, after I upload these videos, I do watch them. And sometimes before I upload them or publish them, I do listen to them to see if anything more comes out to me when I'm listening to them. And a lot of the time it does. So I'll either mention it in another video or I'll write it down for one of our catch-up videos. Once I put it in the comments because I thought I would forget. What was I just looking at? He was outgoing. Okay, so outgoing. I think when she's talked, because she didn't know him, right? Because she couldn't describe him at all. But she said he was more outgoing with her, right? And now she's saying he was very open with communicating with me. These, to me, could also not just be like verbal communication things, like more outgoing because he's an introvert. He was more outgoing with me. That's not really a verbal thing, outgoing, when you think about it, right? Very open with communicating. You can also be open with experimenting in the bedroom, maybe. You could be more outgoing. He might have been more outgoing with her in the bedroom. So that's something that I think is leaking out in her language as well. And I'm not sure, I think I mentioned it before, like it's physical. I think she's talking about them being physical with each other and that their relationship was very physical and it wasn't based on them having things in common or conversation. Yeah, I think it was very physical. So being more outgoing and being very open with communicating with me, I think could also translate into bedroom stuff. Just saying. So was the fact that, just telling us it's a fact. So when she's asked to describe what he's like, she didn't mention any of these things that drew her to him. Any of the things that he was like, that she liked about him. She doesn't say any of them. She doesn't list any of them. They could have been descriptive attributes or characteristics or personality traits that she saw in him when she first met him or got to know him that drew her to him when they asked about what he's like. But again, she doesn't actually, the other thought here is that she's attempting to appear as though she does, give any information or descriptions. She was drawn to him. Oh, I think that's leakage. She was drawn to him. When she first saw him, before they met each other at work, whenever they met each other previously, because they did. It's in her language. It's all, do you know what? I would bet it's all the way through her language. So as we move further through the dialogue and the interview, I reckon it will pop up more and more because they knew it, that she knew him before. She knew of him before this. She just did. Okay. She's basically said it. I'm pretty sure she actually even said it previously in earlier videos, earlier in the interview. So I think one thing that actually kind of drew me to him, she's backing this off. There were things that drew her to him, and it wasn't this. It wasn't this. But there were things that drew her to him. She was drawn to him. I think a lot of it would have been a physical attraction. I think a lot of it would have been a physical, like a shallow, superficial attraction, physical attraction. Because I think she saw him and I think went after him after she saw him. I don't think she met him and then decided she wanted to go after him. I think she just saw him and set her sights on him because I think she thought he was hot or something. I think one thing that actually kind of drew me, this is just persuasion, but I don't understand what she's trying to persuade us of here, right? I've just got a note there I've stuck on. Open with communicating. I think one thing that this is bugging me now. See, I'm hung up on this now. Like, I never stressed anything. I think the one thing that really kind of drew me to him was the fact that he was like very open with communicating with me. If there were like any differences on how we saw things, or just like open-minded. See? Open-minded. There's another reference that's interchangeable with like physical bedroom stuff. Open-minded. Yes, it's very physical. Her language is it's very like bedroom physical, this language. This is leakage. This is what we call leakage, right? Here's more examples of leakage, guys. Okay, so I think as we move forward in the language a little bit, we might find out why she's saying this. But I think with the next couple of lines, like if there were any differences in how we saw things, she's going back to the disagreements again. She's going back to how rational and calm. Like she can't. They had. Is it because she has knowledge, right? This isn't in the language. This could be in the language. I'm wondering why she's telling us this, okay? Could it be because she's aware, because the brain knows what it knows, right? Because what is she talking about? Why is she telling us this? Like, what is her point, right? Is it because the brain knows what it knows and she's aware that there's text messages and she doesn't know what they have? She doesn't know what the police have seen and what they've read and what they have, evidence-wise. Is there a possibility she's aware of an argument via text? Possibly email, but more likely text. Is there a back and forth and she's trying to make it sound like they were rationally talking about something? Could that be why? Could that be why? Could be why. I'm not willing to allow it as a possibility yet in the analysis, okay? But let's move forward and see if it becomes a possibility in the language, right? From the language. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next. Even though this is still bothering me, moving forward might help. If you know why it's bothering me and I can't see it and you can see it, please put it in the comments. He was like very open with communicating with me. So I think one thing that actually kind of drew me to him, carry on, was the fact that he was like very open with communicating with me. With his distancing. With me separates him and her, right? With communicating with me. So it's distancing. I'm going to read the analysis I have here. The fact that, right, he was like very open with communicating with me. Like, very. So like lacks confidence, sort of stalling as well. It lacks like it also is sort of reductive. Like it weakens what's coming. Not always. It's so like can be used in different ways, right? And you've got to look at the context and the surrounding language, okay? So like stalling, lacks confidence, and it weakens what's coming, right? Which is sort of the lacks confidence, but it's different, okay? If you don't know what I mean when I say it's different, it lacks confidence, okay? So she's not confident and committed in what she's about to say. So she stalls with a like, okay? It breaks the flow of the speed of transmission, right? So it lacks confidence. It's reductive as you're going into what you're saying. But she's got like very open. So it kind of weakens the very open. So instead of it being very open, it's like very open, like very open. It reduces the very, it weakens the very. Does that make sense? He was like very open with communicating. No, he was very open with communicating. It weakens the very, all right? But the very is still there, which is persuasive, okay? Like we've talked about very and really before. One is persuasive, but it's not a real problem. It's when there's two or more. The more there are, the more of a problem it is, right? The like weakens it. So I don't think he was that open. She's also got the fact that that's very convincing and persuasive. She's telling us it's a fact that he was like very open. So it was a fact that he was very open. It's a little bit too persuasive. I don't believe, and all of the qualifiers leading into this as well. I think one thing that actually kind of drew me to him was the fact. So actually kinda, I think actually kinda was the fact that he was like very open with communicating with me. I don't not believe that he was open with communicating with her, right? Because I think he was very theatrical. No, not sort of theatrical, but like I've mentioned before that I think he copied a lot, because I don't think he experienced emotions and things and feelings like most people do. You might say normal people, right? And I think that's the reason that Shanann and him were together. Because I don't think him and Shanann were really that compatible. I think that she was very outgoing and very driven, and I've explained all of the things I think about her before. And I don't think he was those things, and I think it was very exhausting and tiring for him to pretend, which I think is why he found Nikki so appealing, because she had the depth of a puddle. And I think like with the cards and poems and, you know, songs that, you know, I think when he was like courting or they were flirting, and I think this is the same thing that he did with Shanann. I think that's why she fell for him, because I think he was playing the part of, maybe he got his idea of what a partner was like from romantic comedies, you know, the best friend, how you win over the girl, like maybe TV families like Everybody Loves Raymond and shows like that where there's the lovable husband, you know, that the goofy guy who's all about his family, and he you know, does whatever his wife asks him to do. And like, I think he copied, and I think when he was flirting with Nicole, probably Shanann too, but when he was flirting with Nicole, I think he was all of those things that was very swoony, you know? And I think he probably laid it on thick, like he was very sort of probably romantic, because that's what he was copying, right? That's what you do. So I feel like when she says he was very open with communicating with me, I feel like he probably did say like lots of lovey-dovey stuff, and they've got text messages, my little empanada and stuff like that. Like, I think that's what he was like. He was very, I think he was very flirty and very swoony, right? Like dreamboaty. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, I don't think that he wasn't necessarily open and communicating, but I don't get the feeling that that's actually what she's talking about, is actual communication. I don't know. Let's keep going. All right. Like and very qualifiers. She's not confident. She needs help to convince. He wasn't open. He was very open, but he was like very open with me. Not everyone. Again, her, right? Again, it's her. With me, he was with me. He was different with me. He was, you know, different with everyone else to how he was with me. That's a repeated pattern through her language as well. I'm so special. I'm this. I'm that. I'm wonderful. So not everyone, but with her specifically. So this is repeated, as she's just told us all about how he felt and emphasized that he talked to her and he couldn't talk to others, and he could get out of his shell with her but not others. And she's repeating this, which makes it important. Allow for the possibility he was not more outgoing with her than anyone else. And I have a theory about this, that Chris went along with whoever he was with, that he was a follower, not a leader. And he did tend to choose strong women that took control of him, so he didn't have to take control and be in control. Shanann was very strong and outgoing, who took charge. A very strong and outgoing woman who took charge. Nicole seemed the same way, but in a different way. I've explained that before. I think Nicole was in a more selfish and controlling way. Shanann was in a more, I'm pushing you to be your best self, and I expect a lot of myself and others kind of a way, right? And I'm not going to have the argument of whether or not she was always kind to him, because I don't care. I don't think that's relevant in terms of what happened, because it doesn't, there's no reason for what happened. I don't care. I don't care about that. So if anyone thinks that, that's fine. And I think she wasn't always kind to him. And I don't think there's anything about that excuses anything he did. Okay? So we've got that out of the way. So the problem with that is that Chris may have felt and may have been looked down on and not looked up to. Okay? And I think that was some of the problem with Shanann, that because of the way he treated her, he made her very happy. Because who wouldn't want to be treated like that, right? if he was copying like rom-coms and shows like that where he was like the perfect partner because he was playing a role because it wasn't who he was. He didn't know who he was. He didn't know how to behave. So he copied. And if he's copying someone who's a perfect partner, then you're with the perfect partner. How wonderful. But that's not who he truly was. And then I think sometimes she did look down on him a little bit because there's clips of her saying, you know, my husband's a genius and all this. So I think she did sort of look down on him a little bit, but I think she loved the way he treated her. He made her very happy. And I do think she loved him. It doesn't mean that she thought he was perfect and everything about him was wonderful, right? Because couples have problems and they have things that annoy each other about each other. So I do think she might have, and because he wasn't a leader and he was such a follower, that might have been something that just happened because of the women that he chose, right? That he was looked down on, not up to, okay? And that may have bothered him. So the payoff was maybe not entirely worth it. Sometimes, or maybe it built up over time, okay? Possibly. Not in general, but specifically her, like open with communicating. So he wasn't open in communicating in general, but specifically her, right? Because that's what she says. With me, you know, he was more outgoing with me. I think with me, like with most people, blah, blah, but with me, he was very open communicating with me. I don't think she knows if he was like that with anyone else or not, but he might have said stuff to her like, I've never felt this way about anyone else. I can't be myself like this with anyone else. He might have said stuff like that to her because that's the stuff that he said, because that's the stuff that he was copying. That's the part he was playing, right? Was saying stuff like that. I don't think he could be himself with anyone because I don't think he knew who himself was. I don't think he had a himself. I think he just copied, right? He was like very open with communicating. Well, I think one thing that actually drew me to him was the fact that he was like, so I don't think this is a fact and I don't believe this. So what's she saying here? I'm not sure yet. I'm still not sure. Let's move on to the next sentence, okay? Because I think this one's a slow burn. I think she's working her way up to a point of some sort. She's got to be, right? She's got to be. If there were like any differences on how we saw things. If, not when. Interesting. If he was very open with communicating with her when there were differences. But she says if. If it happened, the fact that drew her to him was that he was very open with communicating, should have been when they had differences, not if they had differences. So is this fabricated? Let's carry on. So if here instead of when, we know there were, because she's just told us there were. She's just told us they had disagreements. There was a couple times they had disagreements on things, right? She said on how we saw things here too. On again. Interesting. But instead of saying when there were, she says if. She says like any differences. Again, before mentioning the differences. And they're differences here, not disagreements. So now they're differences. The language just changed again. It's reduced again. It's minimized. It's lessened again. Now they're not disagreements. They're differences. And any differences. Any differences on how we saw things. So seeing again, not thinking or feeling or opinions. She's explaining and describing with sight descriptors. She's done this before. So is this a pattern now? Is she a visual person, right? This case is visually sensitive to her. Did she see something that she can't get off her mind? Can she not forget about something she saw, or seeing certain things? So sight is subconsciously coming out over and over again throughout her language. I can't remember off the top of my head the other examples we've seen in the previous interview up till now. But she's saying, she's using saw things, right? She's using sight, okay? Not on how we thought or opinions that we had. So visual, right? So we're going to note that moving forward. Any visual language, we're going to note that moving forward. Or just open-minded about things. It was actually, I personally thought it was kind of unique. She's losing it here. Open with communicating, open-minded about things. About what things? About things. Things, how he saw things. Open-minded about things. One thing that drew me to him. What are all these things? There's things on her mind here. She's got a lot of things on her mind. She doesn't want to tell us what they are. She doesn't want to tell us what anything is, if you've noticed that so far. She doesn't want to tell us what anything is. It doesn't even matter what she's talking about. She doesn't want to tell us anything. So she's still pretending to give details and information while she's not giving any information. She's still doing that. She's a pro at that. She's literally a pro. Or just like open. This doesn't make sense. He always was the exact same way, like always. Like I never stressed anything. I think one thing that actually kind of drew me to him was the fact that he was always like very open with communicating with me. If there were like any differences on how we saw things, or just like open-minded about things, it doesn't make sense. I personally thought it was kind of unique. But she's talking about her again. She's talking about herself again. I personally thought it was kind of unique. If there were, okay, he was very open in communicating with me. One thing that drew me to him was the fact that he was open in communicating with me. If there were any differences on how we saw things, or just like open-minded about things, this is him going along with what she said. He's not open-minded. He's not open-minded. He's just going along with your opinion and what you want. And you're in charge. That's not him open. He's not open-minded. He's empty-minded. There's nothing. He's just he's doing what you want. He's thinking what you think. He's agreeing with what you say. He's not open-minded. I personally thought it was kind of unique. Yeah, because most people have an opinion and a thought of their own. Most people won't just go along with every damn thing you say and think and expect them to follow and do and insist and demand. Like most people will put their foot down about stuff. Most people will say no. Most people have a backbone. Not everyone does, and he didn't. And you think it's kind of unique because maybe you haven't met someone who's just a yes man and just does whatever you say before. And Shanann found him first. And he married her because he's a yes man, right? And they were very happy together because he was just being a yes man and living out his life that he was copying, the role he was playing. And then you came along and you decided that you wanted him. And he went along with that. He just went along with it. I'm having a flashback to the movie Love and Sex at the moment about how she just bumps into stuff. She doesn't make decisions. I just bump into stuff. like a log floating down the river. I just bump into shit. That's Chris. He doesn't make decisions. He just bumps into stuff. It just happens, right? He just goes along with it. He wasn't open-minded. He didn't, you know, come around to your way of thinking after you explained to him why you were right. And he went, oh, you know what? You know what, you're right about that. He just went along with you. Because that's what he did with everybody. He actually did this with everyone. And you keep saying it was just with you. He did this. This is what he was like. This is what he was like with everyone. He just went along to get along. I don't know why, but for that bit there, open-minded about things, unique, I've got like a page and a half of analysis. Okay, so we're not going to go into that one. We're not finished with these yet because I wanted to keep reading to see what was coming out. And I'm still bothered by this. So I'm going to think on it. And we'll pick up from where we left off here, where we finished in the next video. But hopefully I'll have figured out what it is that's bothering me. And we'll likely start with that and then continue on. Because there's something up here. There's something up here. The whole rest of this thing is bothering me. Let's read through what the rest of it. Because there's only a couple lines before we finish the block, right? He was so I think one thing that actually kind of drew me to him was the fact that he was very like open with communicating with me. If there were like any differences on how we saw things or just like open-minded about things, it was actually, I personally thought it was kind of unique because usually most of the men that I've ever met are typically very closed off, and I didn't get that from him at all. But it was always like kind, very kind. So it comes back to the kind, comes back to kind. The disagreements, the differences on how they saw things, the open-mindedness about things, so him coming around to things, which she thought was unique, because usually men are very closed off. Oh, closed off. Closed off. That sort of gives emotional vibes to me. Closed off emotionally. I think that screams she's trouble. She's a psycho. Don't get involved. Like maybe men just stayed very physical with her and they were very closed off because they didn't want to be involved with her any deeper, right? That's what that screams to me. Most of the men I've ever met are typically very closed off from her. Probably not from other people and other women, but from her, they were closed off. But it was always like kind, very kind. What was always kind? What was very kind? Him being open-minded and differences that how you saw things. Why wouldn't it be kind? What an odd thing to say. What an odd thing to say. That is so odd. She got very nasty with him, I think. She got nasty with everyone. I don't think she could. I think she got psycho. When she would get upset, she would get nasty. I think she got nasty with him about stuff. This comes up later as well because I think she's trying to cover for messages that she knows exist and she doesn't know what they have, right? What they've got off their phones, because they want her phone, right? So she doesn't know if they've got Chris's phone or Shanann's phone. She doesn't know what they've got, okay? And I reckon that there was messages on between her and Chris where they were arguing about his wife and his kids, that he had a family. And she was like, don't don't say you love me and then sleep in bed beside another woman. Like, I think when he was in North Carolina with Shanann and the kids visiting their families, and when, you know, she said, when you're with your kids, be with your kids, you know, like, don't talk to me while you're with your kids, spend time with your kids. I think she said these things, but she said them in a nasty way. Like, go sleep. Don't say you love me and then sleep next to your wife or sleep in bed with your wife. I think she's the reason he wasn't sleeping with Shanann. I think she was like, you know, don't touch me and then touch your wife. Go be with your kids then. Like, go and spend time and don't talk. If you're with your kids, why are you messaging me for then? I thought you were with your kids type thing. Like, I think she would throw things in his face. I think she would use things against him. But the thing with text is, right, the thing with like written words in a text message is that you can't send tone and context, right? So you can send something and it can come across in a different way, or you can read into it or interpret it a different way. So especially with text messages, in the same way that you can misinterpret them, you could also have someone interpret them the exact way they were intended, but then say that they weren't intended that way. So she could have intended them to be nasty and intended them to be like cruel and vicious or whatever. But then when she's talking in the interview, she's like, oh, you know, I told him to be with his kids and you know, when he's with his kids, not to message me. Like, in case they've seen these messages or see these messages, and then they go, oh, no, she said that this was what she was saying. Oh, no, she said this was the tone. This was the context of that. So that when they read them, they don't interpret them the way she actually had intended them. So I think she's covering her own butt. So, because why is she saying here, it was always like kind, very kind? What even does that mean? What is that in reference to? It doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. He was very open in communicating with me. If there were any differences on how we saw things, or just open-minded about things, it was always kind, very kind. So he never got nasty with her. And she liked that. He never got nasty. He never retaliated. She could behave as badly as she wanted and lose her nut as much as she wanted. And he would never escalate. He would get mad and upset, but he would always stay calm and rational and kind and weak. I think when she says kind, she's implying weakness, like he's not capable of what he did, but he did do that. So she's trying to say that she's not capable of what he did by this team thing they have going on, which I've mentioned before. Because this kind, she keeps saying kind. She's used this word before, and it doesn't fit where she uses it. It seems very unnatural. It seems like pushed. What the word am I trying to think of? It seems very deliberate. I don't know. It just sounds odd there. But we made it to the end of the block, but we're not done yet. Okay, so we've still got a couple of lines to go. I think maybe in the next video, we probably actually will finish the block. I'm going to try and I've filmed 3 nights in a row this week. I know. I'm proud of myself too. Oh, let's read what's coming after this block, okay? Because she's got a couple of answers that are really simple, no answers. So that's generally typically what we've seen from her throughout this interview so far in her language, when she gives outright no simple answers, it's truthful. And there's a couple of those coming out, right? And again, they're about his temper and his temperament and his aggression. Then there's another block. We've got another block. I'm actually looking forward to the next block because this one's been so much fun. And there's some blue. There's some sensitivities of the highest degree in this block. So let's have a read of what's coming. So after it was like kind, very kind, Kevin says, so no sense that this guy had a temper, or Nicole, no, not at all. Sorry, not at all, is what she says. Kevin was aggressive, or he never lost his mind and yelled and said crazy stuff or anything like that. Nicole, no. Kevin, okay. Nicole, no. Again, that wasn't a question, but she said no again. No. Okay, here comes the block. Kevin, so can we just kind of go back to your relationship? You say you guys had a lot in common. What was that? Okay. Okay, here we go, guys. Nicole. Well, I mean, like, we were both really into fitness. I think that's important. It's a lifestyle. Both of us ate pretty healthy, so I think that was important as well. He's like a total gearhead. He likes cars a lot, and I don't know nearly as much about them, but it's always been something that I've been pretty interested in. So we definitely talk about stuff like that. And I guess he was always willing to like learn new stuff and vice versa. Like, I like to travel a lot, and it's not something that he's done a lot, but he seemed like really interested in what I had to share with him and vice versa. So even if it wasn't something that we originally had in common together, it was just like, hey, I respect what you have to say, and vice versa. Oh, do you know, I hate it when she says, hey. She does it. Oh, it gets worse and worse as we go. And it's one of the things that's in my book, because I'm really interested to see when she says that, because I feel like, oh, my hair's all gone weird, like an old man with a comb over. I feel like she says, hey, when it's something that wasn't said, right? Because it's like, hey, I respect what you have. I feel like that's something that she says when it's not a quote, when it's something that she's sort of fabricating, but it's like a thought she's having to explain something. Because it comes up later, and it's so annoying when she does it. She does there's one section where she's like, hey, this. She doesn't even say the things. She doesn't even say the different things. She just says, hey, this. I was like, what? You're not saying anything. You're not saying anything. You're just saying words that don't mean anything. It's so funny. But that's what's coming anyway. And what's really interesting here is, remember how we said before, they had kind of like sort of a lot in common, or whatever it was, but it was like so qualified and like not a lot in common. So they didn't have a lot in common. Then later, shortly after, they had things in common. So it wasn't a lot in common anymore. It was things. Well, did you just notice what she said? Did you notice what she said? If you did, put it in the comments, right? Pause the video, whatever, and I won't say anything. Okay, now I'm going to say it. She's literally just said that they didn't have stuff in common. Even if it's not something, right? Even if it's not, even if it wasn't something that we originally had in common together. She's literally just told us they didn't have much in common. They just started doing things that each other liked. So we saw in the language how it gradually, like, because it supported this. And we knew this, and now she's actually said it. So we saw this in the language, and now she's literally saying what we saw before when we said, well, she's saying they don't have anything in common. They don't have a lot in common at all, right? They don't have much in common. She wants us to think they had a lot in common, but they didn't have a lot in common. Then it went to just things in common. Okay, so they didn't have a lot in common. All right, we saw that before. Now, she's literally telling us, even if it wasn't something that we originally had in common. So she's literally telling us they didn't have much in common. It's just insane. We were both really into fitness. Both of us are pretty healthy, so that's important. So they were into fitness, like diet, fitness, stuff like that, right? That's it. That's it. Oh, and there's one other thing that they had in common, and we know what that is. But she can't tell us about that one because she needs us to think that they talked to each other. We know they didn't. They didn't talk very much to each other at all. We know what they did. We know what they did, and she won't tell us. She won't say that. So she's listed one thing they had in common here. And then she said he's a total gearhead, like he likes cars. And I don't know nearly as much about them, but it's always been something that I've been pretty interested in. So earlier in a previous video, I said that she was going to say further ahead that there was something that she wasn't interested in, but she'd always wanted to be interested in or whatever. So this is it. This is the thing. But when, I don't know if it's in Chris's interview. I think it's in some of Shanann's social media posts. And she's talking about when they went and test drove these cars. So like Shanann was into cars, Chris was into cars, and Shanann was into cars. So Chris and Shanann had a lot in common, right? They liked the same bands. They liked the same sports. They both were interested in cars. They had a lot in common, right? Nicole and Chris had one thing in common. So when she said that the reason they like started talking and, you know, what got interested in each other was because they had a lot in common, they didn't. So what did they get interested? Why did they start talking then? Because she found him physically. They had a physical attraction. We called it. We called it at the beginning of the interview. One of the first things she said, like the first 10 minutes of the interview or whatever, we called it. They didn't have a lot in common. She thought he was hot. They were physically attracted. They had a physical chemistry. It was lust. That's why. They didn't have a lot in common at all. Oh my gosh. It's almost 2.5 hours. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go now. Again, thank you so much for being here with me. If you're still here at the end, I appreciate you. You know that. I'm so grateful for you. I love that you come back here and you're interested in this. As interested as I am. I hope you're getting excited about the language too. I think there's going to be so much in here. So I'm starting to get excited the further in we get. It's just getting very interesting. I'm getting very I don't know, I'm getting very nerdy about it. But this is what I love. I get so excited about this. I think it's fascinating and I love it. So yeah, so thank you very much for being here. Again, your time is valuable, and thank you so much for spending it here with me. I really appreciate it, more than you know. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you can like the video, if you can comment, that would help with the algorithm or whatever, just to get more people seeing it, so that hopefully it can reach people that, you know, it might be useful to moving forward. And I'll be here again in the next video because I'm not going anywhere. Even if you guys all stop watching, I'm still going to do this because I enjoy it now, and it's one of my favorite things. So thank you for giving me something to look forward to. Thank you so much for being here. I won't take up any more of your precious time. I'll see you in the next one.